Hello and welcome to Azure Wala YouTube channel. We are in part 5th of Azure Solution Architect Expert series. So far we have completed 6 questions in previous videos. In this video we are going to discuss question number 7 and question 8. Question 7. You plan to deploy Azure Databricks to support a machine learning application. Data engineers will mount an Azure Data Lake storage account to the Databricks file system. Permissions to folders are granted directly to the data engineers. You need to recommend a design for the planned Databricks deployment. The solution must meet following requirements. The requirement number 1, ensure that data engineers can only access folders to which they have permissions. Requirement number 2 is minimize development efforts and minimize costs. What should you include in the recommendation? Let's understand key terminologies here. What is a Databricks? Azure Databricks provide the latest version of Apache Spark and allows you to seamlessly integrate with open source libraries. So this is what is the Databricks. Now, what is Azure Data Lake Storage Account? Azure Data Lake Storage is a cloud-based enterprise data solution. It's engineered to store massive amount of data in any format and to facilitate big data analytical workloads. In this question, the requirement is that data engineers need to authenticate from Azure Databricks to Azure Data Lake Storage account using their own Entra ID account, and data engineers can authenticate automatically to accessing Azure Data Lake Storage from Azure Databricks cluster using the same Microsoft Entra ID identity that use to log into Azure Databricks. When enable Azure Data Lake Storage credential pass-through for cluster, commands that run on that cluster can read and write data in Azure Data Lake Storage without requiring to configure service principal credentials for access to storage. To meet this requirement, Databricks SKU must be the premium one. Then only we can enable the credential pass-through cluster configuration in Databricks, and that will meet the authentication requirement for data engineers. Now here very important thing to note is that credential pass-through is a legacy data governance model. Databricks recommend that you upgrade it to Unity Catalog, and Unity Catalog provides centralized access control, auditing, lineage and data discovery capabilities across Databricks workspaces. There is possibility that after having update in the exam syllabus, we may see this question with the Unity Catalog answer as one of the option. Question 8. You plan to deploy an Azure web app named App1 that will use Azure Active Directory or Azure Entra ID authentication. App1 will be accessed from the internet by users at your company. All the users have computers that run Windows 10 and are joined to Azure Active Directory. You need to recommend a solution to ensure that users can connect to App1 without being prompted for authentication and can access App1 only from company-owned computers. What should you recommend for each requirement? The users can connect to App1 without being prompted for authentication. What we will be using? We'll be using Azure Active Directory Application Proxy. Azure Active Directory Application Proxy provides secure remote access to on-premise web application, and our application is running on Azure, therefore this is not applicable. Azure Active Directory Managed Identity provide an automatically managed identity in Microsoft Entra ID for applications to use when connecting to resources that support Microsoft Entra authentication. But here we are not going to connect to the resources, rather our users are going to be authenticated on web application in Azure. Therefore this is not applicable. Next is an Azure Active Directory app registration. Azure Active Directory application registration is essential to integrate the web application with Azure Active Directory. By doing this, you can leverage Azure Active Directory authentication mechanisms, including single sign-on. Therefore, this is the correct answer. Next one is the users can access F1 only from company-owned computers. For that, what we can use here? Let's see the options. Azure Policy. Azure Policy helps to enforce organizational standards and to assess compliance at scale. But Azure Policy doesn't help us to restrict the user access from company-owned computer only. Therefore, this is not the correct answer. Azure Blueprints. Azure Blueprint enables cloud architects and central information technology groups to define a repeatable set of Azure resources that implements and adheres to an organization's standards, patterns, and requirements. Therefore, Azure Blueprints also cannot help us to restrict with the company-owned computers. Next one is Azure Application Gateway. Azure Application Gateway is web traffic layer 7 load balancer that enables you to manage traffic to your web application, and it has nothing to do with the access control. Next choice is an Azure Active Directory administrative unit. Administrative units are used to restrict permissions in a role to any portion of the organization we define, and we can restrict the access to particular region or area of the organization. It cannot define a rule which can limit the access of an Azure web application to the company owned computers only. Therefore, this is not the correct answer. Now we are left with conditional access policy. Azure Active Directory conditional access policies allow you to define and enforce specific conditions under which user can access applications. Therefore, this is the correct answer. I hope this video was informative for you. Please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, press the bell notification icon. Thank you for watching this video. See you in next video.